Now, last time you appeared before the committee, I asked you about independent schools and rates. And I asked you if you'd done any assessment of the effect of imposing non-domestic rates on the independent school sector. The reason I asked that is because if there is an extra bill for that sector, there could be a knock-on effect on councils. If schools start to put up their prices, then kids may end up in the state sector, and that's why I asked the question. At that point, you told me, or you told the committee, the information that I have, this is yourself, I have seen suggests that there will not be a mass exodus from independent mainstream schools to state schools. The sums involved in non-domestic rates can be absorbed by independent schools. So a couple of questions there is, what was the information that you've seen that suggests there will not be a mass exodus? And why do you say the sums involved can be absorbed? What evidence have you got for that?
Okay. I think one leads to the other, actually. And the figure that I would look at is, again, in understanding the overall context of non-domestic rates bill potentially to that sector. So you look at that and say, what is the impact of the change we're about to make? That's a fair assessment. So I described for nurseries that it's less than 2% of expenditure for that sector. For independent schools, I believe it's also less than 2%. Let me run through why I believe that to be the case. The estimated average charity relief per pupil is £225. The average daily fees paid per pupil is estimated to be around £13,700 per annum. Now, these are averages based on the work that we've done. Total fees is estimated to be around £374 million. So charity rates relief therefore represents around 1.6% of the average fees paid. So for around 80% of pupils that we've been able to look at and the numbers that we have, the average charity relief will be £300 or less. So I'm trying to put into context that if the response of those independent schools that would be covered by the policy, that's mainstream independent schools, it is such that it amounts to those figures, that is not such a financial shock that I think would lead to a mass exodus from independent schools to the state sector. And I've had no concern raised with me that I am aware of from the main local authority that would be affected by such a policy, Edinburgh, that they're concerned about pupils returning to the state sector. I also said in those comments at the committee, and I do believe this, that it will be for mainstream independent schools to respond accordingly. This doesn't affect their charity status, it only affects non-domestic rates status. And I mean, it has been put to me that some schools might respond by curtailing bursary entitlement to less well-off students. I don't think that there would be a rush from independent mainstream schools to become or have a perception that they're becoming elitist or more elitist. But if they pass on directly that removal of relief, that's the scale we're talking about, less than 2%. And it's from that analysis I conclude that that would probably be absorbed by the vast majority of fee-paying students and pupils in their families. But look, I didn't just assume that. I did listen and I did look at the evidence that was presented by the independent schools representatives and asked them for further information. But you've asked for my opinion, and my opinion is that that can be absorbed.
Sorry, just one final question, Kavina. Yeah. So you mentioned you had evidence from the independent school sector.
Yep.
What was that evidence?
So, I mean, in the same way that you would count as a committee a presentation of an opinion as evidence. That's why you call it evidence-taking sessions. I had personal meetings with the association. There was written correspondence as well to Barclay, who would have considered that, and then directly to government when the Barclay report was published. And I looked at those letters, and you make a judgment. Same as business, same as I referenced Federation of Small Businesses. and their evidence about what an impact on a change of small business bonus would lead to. I looked at what the association said, and individual correspondence. They felt, they believed that the impact of any removal of relief would lead to. The other thing is, as well, is that I've been able to show how I've responded to evidence. Because there's a fair question around specialist schools, and schools with a very particular focus on special needs and the disabled. So that's why I'm not taking the approach suggested in Barclay, which was that all independent schools have their relief removed. I'm being far more specific and refined to say, no, again, policy intention is independent mainstream schools, because I believe there to be a case for further support for those with those very dedicated functions. And again, when it comes to the legislation, we'll make sure that we refine that to get it right. And that will also involve further consultation and keeping in the spirit with the Barclay review, a lead-in time as well. So that's at least a couple of years away to get the consultation, the engagement, the legislation and refinement right. But the policy intention is not to go as far as Barclay, because I recognise there is a very special case that can be made for those schools with those very special functions, and that's why in engagement with the sector I've arrived at that conclusion.
Okay. Mr Simpson?
No, thanks very much.